wanted to wish everybody a wonderful Shabbat. We wanted to say a beautiful, short, and sweet Dvar Torah that's very important for our generation. And that is, we know that at the end of this week's Parsha, Miriam says Lashon Hara about her brother, and she gets leprosy. A lot of people don't know. Aharon also had gotten it. It doesn't say it in the Torah, since he was the Kohen Gadol and the king of the Kohens, because God was very adamant that to protect the honor of Moshe, and they had no right to equate their prophecy to Moshe's. Moshe is head and shoulders above any other person in the world. He has a clear face-to-face relationship, crystal clear line with Hashem. Like I talk to you, you talk to me. A person talks to his wife and children or his fellow. So that's why Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't be with his wife anymore, Sipporah, because he was always on call, 24/7. But there's an interesting thing. In the end of the Parsha, it says the Jews were they were on call to go to the next stop, because they were constantly traveling in the desert. But the whole nation of Israel waited till Miriam got better for 7 days. Her leprosy got better, then they moved on. Why did she deserve such an honor? Can you imagine? Imagine, really, they have an initiative to move on. But Hashem says, no, hold your horses, everybody wait. Let's wait for Miriam to get better. Then we'll move together in unison with Miriam to our next destination. And the reason is because Miriam did something seemingly insignificant. When Moshe was thrown into the Nile, she followed him to see what was going to be with him. Because she was the one that called out her father that, why did you divorce and separate from my mother? And she was the one that was the older sister. So Hashem said, since you cared about your little brother, and it ended up being a big thing because she saw that Batya had taken Moshe under her wing, and then she said that the kid wouldn't nurse the baby, and he brought the mother back to nurse. So in honor of that, since she waited for Moshe, anticipated and waited for Moshe to see what was going to happen with him, Hashem said, you waited for Moshe, I'm going to make sure that the entire nation waits for you. And it's not going to travel till you get better. So Rav Pincus brings out a beautiful idea that's very important for our generation, because a lot of times we think that we're insignificant and our mitzvahs don't have enough value, but I'm saying in the end of the day, it's not like she killed herself or put herself in any danger from Moshe, right? She was inquisitive. Okay, she was the older sister. She wanted to see what was going to happen to her older brother. She followed him on the banks of the Nile. She saw Moshe Rabbeinu. She wanted to know what would happen with her brother. So what's the lesson the Torah is trying to teach us? That don't ever underestimate the value of any mitzvah. No mitzvah is futile. No mitzvah is, insignificant. Just because Miriam followed the basket of her little baby brother Moshe to see where he would go, an entire nation, million of people waited for her to get better. And this is so important because Rav Wolbe talks about this. He says sometimes the Yetzer Hara says, especially in this generation, we live in a generation where people want to be on the headlines, like they think the only mitzvah is a mitzvah that's a home run, a slam dunk, a grand slam mitzvah. But actually, greatness in Judaism, it's the small things that count. Like Mashiach, each Jew has to do his little mitzvah in his little corner of the world till we get to our tikkun. You understand? Mm-hmm. It's not like one switch. It builds up like a Lego piece. You understand? Mm-hmm. And he just brings like such a beautiful thing, Rav Wolbe. He says some people think to do a great Kiddush Hashem or to be a great Jew, they have to be like in the Spanish Inquisition, the people that were willing to die at the stake and say Shema Yisrael and not convert to Christianity. or in the Holocaust, right? They did a glorious thing. He says, Hashem, if He doesn't give you that test, don't think you can make a Kiddush Hashem. By you spacing in and davening 3 times with Kavanah, Shacharit, Mincha, Arvit, or saying your Shema, which is, if you don't have the proper Kavanah when you say Shema, don't think that's also, that's in its way, it's a tremendously great thing. And I'll give you an example, like not wasting time. There was one of the great Gedolim a few generations ago was Rab Bengis. He was the head of the Eidah Charedit of the, he was like the chief rabbi of Yerushalayim. So he had a minhag, I think once every 3.5 years he would finish Shas. So he invited, at that time Jerusalem was much smaller. So he invited all the great rabbinical figures in Yerushalayim. Wonderful. A few months, like a month later, he made another Siyum HaShas. Now Shas, even if you learn a page a day, it takes almost half an hour to 45 minutes. It takes 7 years. So they said, how could you finish Shas in like 30 days? Like, it was less than a month. He says, I'll tell you a secret. Every time I had to stand in line in the bank and here and there, I had a small Shas that I would keep in my pocket, and I would learn a few lines of it. He says, this Siyum HaShas is a different tract. It's not my daily regimen, which I learn 3.5 pages and I finish it every 2 years. Or whatever, I finish every 2 years. This was, you understand? In Farsi,
many years
over the course of, it may have taken him 15, 20 years to finish it.
Wow.
But, you understand? Mm-hmm. So sometimes, we think you have 5 minutes, you come to shul 5 minutes early. And I hate it. Like, I personally, I don't want to brag. I try not to waste my time. But you see from this story, amazing story from Rab Bengis, that, through whatever, 15, 20, I don't know how long years it took him. But those 5-10 minutes that he was waiting in line, over that 15, 20 year course, he finished all of Shas. So that was like, everybody was, astonished in Yerushalayim. Because he had just given a Siyum HaShas, but, over those... And I just want to finish with one idea. Sometimes, we think it's so insignificant to say good morning and respect people. So there was a Chabad Shaliach in San Francisco. Mm-hmm. He once came in contact. A lot of people, unfortunately, they jump off the Golden Gate Bridge to commit suicide. So the guy that was actually in charge of investigating all these deaths and worked in the morgue and worked for the city was actually Jewish. So he told him, tell me. So he says, there's one story that always makes me scared when I'm not nice to people and say, he said, so the rabbi asked him, he said, which story stood out to you the most out of all these people that get similar stories? So he said there was a young guy, he was depressed, and he writes in his suicide note, he says, I'm going to walk from my house. His house was like 2-3 miles away from the Golden Gate Bridge. He writes there that I promise you, he writes this to his parents, because a lot of these suicide people, they write suicide notes. Mm-hmm. He says, if one person on my course, from my journey to my house, to my suicide mission, says hi to me, that means I'm important, I won't commit suicide. But he says, obviously, nobody said hi to him. So he said, the guy that was in charge of all these people to, bury them and, chronicle, he says, that's always scary, You never know what one kind word. He said, can you imagine the guy must have bumped into hundreds of people. He was walking miles from his house. Sure. And if one person wouldn't have the decency to say hi to him, this guy wouldn't come in. So, again, let's ever underestimate just common courtesy. The smallest of mitzvahs, like Miriam, just looking to what's coming to bother, has amazing effects in the eyes of Hashem. No mitzvah is too insignificant, mitzvah is too small, and it can make a world of a difference if you put a small amount of effort. That small 5 minutes that you don't waste on a daily basis can end up being the entire Shas. May Hashem help us to always value our mitzvot and be great Because greatness doesn't come from one action, it comes from many small actions.